Less than 24 hours to go until the next massive Bitcoin announcement that could change the world, at least according to Dennis Porter. Let's take a look at what's behind it. Also, Donald Trump has now made his choice for the new SEC chief. Gary Gensler has stepped down voluntarily, and the new SEC chief could really push the Bitcoin and crypto market now. That's what the Bitcoin community is hoping for right now. Also, Michael Saylor is now talking about a Bitcoin crash. We're going to look at what's behind it, because this crash is different from what you think. So we have some really hot topics to look at today. First, let's start with the massive announcement from Dennis Porter. He has talked about massive announcements in the past before. Most of the time, it really was worth the promise he made. E.G. Last time he said, in 24 hours, I'm going to announce something massive. And then Pennsylvania actually introduced its Bitcoin Reserve Act here. And now something similar could happen again. He's making an announcement here with Cynthia Lummis, so that's probably going to happen later today for you guys at night. But for me, it's still daytime. And you can really be curious about what that's all about. It's probably going to be something about the Bitcoin Reserve Law. I have a little hunch. And it seems to me that it doesn't look too good for Donald Trump to introduce a Bitcoin Reserve Law on a nationwide level. In my opinion, it looks much more likely that the Bitcoin Reserve Law will first come to various states in the U.S. Dennis Porter also said that he even bets he'll implement a Bitcoin Reserve Law in various states in the U.S. faster than Donald Trump can implement his Bitcoin Reserve Law. And he says, I can now officially confirm and announce that 10 states will be introducing bills for strategic Bitcoin reserves in the United States. We're going to win with Bitcoin. We're going to lead the world. No one will be able to compete with us, and the world will follow our example. So this could be part of that announcement with Cynthia Lummis, who is also behind the Bitcoin Reserve strategy. It might be that the next states are about to release their bill, or maybe even one state is moving forward and actually passing a law or something like that. I don't know. I'm not really familiar with the legislation process. If you can just do that, just say, okay, we've decided, it's a go. I think that really needs to be made public. So I think it's more likely that maybe new states could come in with a new bill. But it's all speculation, pure speculation. We can expect to see it in probably less than 24 hours. What's really important to mention here is that Donald Trump's recent statements have made it sound really, really strange, so I'm not currently expecting the Bitcoin Reserve strategy to be implemented on a nationwide level in the U.S., but this can be circumvented if the states simply start to draft a using bill or something like that internally, to then pass the law here, and then you start with one state, Pennsylvania or whatever, and then you go on. Then you have 10, 12, 20 states, and then maybe at some point it will come to the state level. And then we actually have another very important change in the USA. Namely, we now have a new SEC chief, and that is really very, very crucial because this role is really crucial for Bitcoin and for the crypto market. They basically pushed Gary Gensler out of his position, and Donald Trump has already announced that the first thing he'll definitely do when he takes office, he mentioned it in Nashville, not in his inauguration speech, but in Nashville. He said the first thing he'll do when he becomes president is fire Gary Gensler. Now Gary Gensler has voluntarily stepped down because he probably realized his time was running out, and a lot of people have always criticized him for blocking Bitcoin or the crypto market back in 2021. And now a lot of people are assuming that with the new SEC chair, Bitcoin prices are going to be pumped even higher, more than they were under Gary Gensler, because Gensler was somewhat restrictive in his regulations, but it's really more about the crypto market overall. With Bitcoin, he wasn't really that restrictive. It's more about the crypto market. But in general, a lot of people are now assuming that this is a very, very positive sign. Paul Atkins says here that Bitcoin is a revolutionary technology and its potential shouldn't be held back by over-regulation. So Donald Trump has really picked the right candidate here. Donald Trump also says he wants to scale back regulation on Bitcoin and crypto. And now we have the right guy who will probably make things less regulated. And if we have less regulation, that also means more companies can set up shop in the US, more mining, more Bitcoin institutions, and so on. And that leads to rising Bitcoin prices and also gives investors more confidence, knowing that there's regulatory clarity, Bitcoin isn't going to be heavily regulated, and we can do what we want.
That's one reason why the SEC should be tuned in to what's happening, to see which way things are shifting. Let's try to support that activity that's not criminal, and it allows markets to thrive, because if it challenges the established players, it helps lower costs for investors and for people trying to raise capital. I mean, that's why we have financial markets, to get capital find its way to businesses, and people take risks, and they might lose all their money by investing in something, but that's their right. They can go buy a lottery ticket.
Dash is definitely making a strong statement advocating for free markets, personal responsibility, and less regulation. He emphasizes the need for free markets to ensure money flows to the right businesses in the financial market, allowing capital to reach its proper destination. Open markets are crucial. Excessive subsidies and regulations can misdirect capital, leading to bubbles. Importantly, he highlights that people should have the right to lose money, a point often overlooked by regulatory bodies. If you subsidize, regulate, and so on too much, then capital will not find its way to where it should, but will lead to bubbles forming. And he also says, which is super important, the key point here is that people should have the right to lose money because that's what regulatory bodies always seem to overlook. Then they say, okay, we're going to add another regulation here, then we'll add another regulation there, and then we'll throw in 1,000 more regulations. And they always say it's for the protection of the investors. In the end, it just confuses investors, and basically you can't do anything anymore. And if something happens, then the story gets bailed out. So there are bailout packages or whatever, and then the profits of companies are privatized, but the losses are socialized. And he says, no, that can't be. We have to allow people to, for example, invest in something, even if it's the lottery or even if it's Bitcoin, if you say that's speculative or whatever. People should be allowed to invest in it, and they should also be allowed to lose their money, because it is simply their own responsibility if they fail with a company, fail with an investment, and so on. And that's a really strong statement, which is why so many people are now hoping for the new SEC chief, because he stands for free markets and also supports Bitcoin and crypto.
And then we, in fact, actually have Michael Saylor indeed talking about a Bitcoin crash, but not in the way you might think. I certainly think it will stay volatile because it's a 24/7, 365 global asset.
2001, you can freak out, sell it on Saturday night, and you can eagerly buy it back on Sunday morning. That's a feature, not a bug.
You've experienced ups and downs, but will we avoid downturns like in the past because of the changes we've seen?
I think it's going to shoot up through the roof, then hit 180 and crash down to 140, and people are going to be freaking out about it all over again. But let me make this one analogy. War Thorius like fire, and sun people runner wave on the fire. Bert Henry Farn put the fire into carriage. Why an engine created and tired industry, and you manage your wings.
And that is also a very exciting statement here from Michael Saylor, because that is how it will most likely play out. He expects that Bitcoin will rise against the US dollar and then crash against the US dollar. These are just example numbers. It could also be that Bitcoin rises to 120 and then crashes. Or it could rise to 150 and then crash. So he's talking about 20% crashes or something like that, roughly speaking. And then he says people are going to freak out when Bitcoin crashes from 180 to the US dollar, but they'll forget that Bitcoin had actually risen before that. And now, if we consider the crash, even if it falls, we still have an increase from this cycle to that cycle. And that just means you should prepare for this volatility. But that volatility isn't a problem because you can actually use it to your advantage. I mean, it would be crazy if Bitcoin just kept going up without any volatility. And that just means you should prepare for this volatility. But that volatility isn't a problem because you can actually use it to your advantage. I mean, it would be crazy if Bitcoin just kept going up without any volatility. The volatility actually helps flush out the weak hands from the market. It cleans things up, and it allows Bitcoin to develop rapidly because, let's say, the bad companies, the bad investors, and so on, the weak hands, they get sorted out pretty quickly. I mean, it would be crazy if Bitcoin just kept going up without any volatility. Volatility helps flush out the weak hands from the market, creating a sort of cleansing process. It allows Bitcoin to develop rapidly because, let's say, the bad companies, the bad investors, and so on, the weak hands, they get sorted out pretty quickly. It's kind of like a cleansing process. And Michael Saylor also says that volatility isn't something to be stamped out, but rather something to be embraced. Bitcoin's crash is unpredictable, with example moves like 180. It's not that Bitcoin is just going to drop and stay at the US dollar level. Instead, we go up to 180, then down to 140, and then it goes back up to 200, 250, or whatever. Like I said, those are just example numbers. No one can know exactly how it's going to play out, but you can definitely see the general movements, the broad patterns. There are going to be those pullbacks of 20, 30, 40%. And in the long-term trend, Bitcoin is just going to keep going up. And it's really, really important to keep that in mind. And in the long-term trend, Bitcoin is just going to keep going up. And it's really, really important to keep that in mind. And now I recommend that if you want to buy Bitcoin, check out the link below. I'll put the link to Bitcoin there. The easiest way to buy Bitcoin in Europe. Super easy, safe, and simple. Here you can also save up to 20% on fees when buying Bitcoin with the code BitcoinHotel. And then feel free to subscribe here so we can grow the channel even better in 2021, make even better videos, and get more traction. And here's the message. Bitcoin is really reaching the world. It's really important that we gain traction here and bring this information to the world. Thank you so much for watching. See you later. Peace out.